Capitol Hill Secretary of State Marco Rubio defended the Trump administration's actions in Venezuela as he testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, taking questions from lawmakers for the first time since U.S. forces removed President Nicolas Maduro from power.
That's the end state that we want. Free, fair, prosperous, and friendly Venezuela. We're not going to get there in 3 weeks. It's going to take some time. And so objective number one was stability. In the aftermath of the removal of Maduro, the concern was what happens in Venezuela. Is there civil war? Do the different factions start going at each other? Are 1 million people crossing the border into Colombia? All of that has been avoided.
Florida Republican Congresswoman María Salazar joins me now. Congressman, good to have you with us. Satisfied with what has gone on so far in Venezuela?
Thank you very much. Well, very happy, and even happier to know what Secretary Rubio said today, that they were still stabilizing the recovery and the transition, because we all do, Republicans and Democrats, want to see a friendly, freely elected president in Venezuela. So, yeah, I'm very pleased with what he said.
Do you want a timeline, to be more specific, coming from the administration? Because much of the Maduro regime, as you well know, Congresswoman, remains in power. There have been some political prisoners released, but not nearly as many as exist. And those that have been released are under a gag order within the country. Do you want things to speed up?
Of course, we all do, and we would love to see the opposition getting back to Venezuela, being able to organize themselves once again, being able to put together political parties and gather and rally together without any type of interference from the Maduro regime. But at the same time, I agree with what Marco Rubio was saying, that we need to take concrete steps so we will not make mistakes and we do not have a civil war, or even worse, that the opposition figures like Maria Corina Machado may not be able to play the democratic game. So I like the speed, but at the same time, I'm cautious. So I like what I'm seeing right now. We need to see a little bit more, but I do love the fact that Delcy Rodriguez is cooperating with Marco. I like the fact that they do not have the oil resources anymore in their hands, and that we are going to be administering those monies so they will not go back to the corrupt hands. Like Marco said, this was the paradise for the gangsters. They're a bunch of crooks, but they are now under our control.
Let me ask you about Cuba, because the Secretary of State was asked to rule out regime change in Cuba. He said, no, I'm not going to rule that out. But he said, I'm not talking about the U.S. military doing that, but we are trying to add economic pressure to Cuba, and we want that regime to fall. Your response?
Oh, and I agree with Marco Rubio. You see, I represent the heart of the Cuban exile community in the United States. I agree with Marco Rubio that this has been the worst regime that the Western Hemisphere has seen for the last 100 years. And I do know that the Cuban people are more than ready to rally around the democratic forces. It's going to be, I think it's going to be very clear within the next few months that we're going to see the Cubans back on the streets, claiming and shouting libertad, which means freedom. The Cuban regime is hanging by a thread. They have no water. They have no electricity. For the average viewer that is watching us right now, the average Cuban home does not have electricity for 20 hours a day. 20 hours. So that means that they only have power 4 hours. They don't have water. They don't have food. They don't have medicines. They don't have clothes. They don't have freedom. And now they have lost the fear because of the signals that we, the United States, were sending to them. Because we all want the same thing for Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, the rest of the hemisphere: freedom and democracy.
Let me ask you about immigration and what's going on in Minneapolis. Someone you know, I believe, in state politics in Florida, State Rep Eliana Garcia. She helped found Latinos for Trump in 2016. She described what happened in Minneapolis as abhorrent and said the Republicans are going to lose the midterms because of Stephen Miller policies and rhetoric. How do you evaluate that?
Well, I do believe that we have a national conversation pending, that right now that we are at crossroads and the Republican Party has in his hands And President Trump, I always say, could be for immigration what Lincoln was for slavery and Reagan was for communism. And I'm going to repeat it. He is the man that after 40 years of immigration being a toxic topic, and most presidents since Reagan not following immigration laws because they are completely incoherent with modern times, it's time for us to start this national conversation as to what are we going to do with immigration. And that's why I, yours truly, María Salazar, introduced the only immigration reform law in Congress right now, which is bipartisan. And basically it says, why don't we sit at the table and put an end to this problem? It's ICE. We need to change ICE directives. They are following the law. We need to change the laws, as Kristi Noem said. If we change the laws, then the law enforcement agencies will then follow what we wrote in Congress. That's why I introduced the Dignity Act and is the only game in town at this time.
Do you regard what has happened in Minneapolis as abhorrent to you ethically or morally?
Oh, I think that no one should die because was on the streets protesting something that the Constitution, First Amendment of the Constitution guarantees. But at the same time, we need to see what really happened. I understand that everyone is trying to find out who's at fault here. But the problem is that the system is at fault. That should have never happened, because if communities know that ICE is going in to take the bad hombres, the rapists, the gangsters, the murderers, and not the nannies or the gardeners, then I believe that the society, whether it's in Minneapolis or in New York or anywhere else, would not be out on the streets trying to protect those people. But those people are also violent criminals. So everything it's chaos because there's no clarity. So since there is no clarity, there's chaos. And that's why we are responsible. We, the Republican Party, the leaders in Congress, we need to put an end to this. And the president could definitely be the big savior of the whole immigration space.
Florida Republican Congresswoman María Salazar, let's keep this conversation going. Come back again, please.